right, welcome back to Behind the Vault. I'm Angelo, and this is part 2 of building your financial roadmap. Let's go behind the vault. Okay, so from our last video, I posed the question, have you ever asked yourself, I make all this money and I have no idea where it goes? It's not an uncommon question. People have been asking this question for a very, very long time. And you know what it is? It's not the big stuff that gets us. We all know what our mortgage payment is, what our rent is, what our car payment is, what our insurance is, what our property taxes are. We all know what the big payments are, and we all know when they come out. It's the little things that will get you. So here's an example. Let's say, for example, you went out every day and you bought a coffee and a muffin on your way to work. And let's say that was like $3.20 a day. Unless you go to Starbucks, then it's a lot more than that. And then let's say you bought lunch when you were at work. And then after work, you went out, let's say twice a week for a happy hour with your colleagues or friends or people that you worked with. And let's say that was, I don't know, $10 for lunch and $40 when you went out for drinks with the tip. Well, funny enough, just buying a coffee and a muffin every day, lunch while you're at work, and going out twice a week for drinks, that works out to over $10,000 a year. $10,000. Now, what could you do with an extra $10,000? Here's the thing though, I'm not going to tell you not to get coffee in the morning. I'm not going to tell you don't buy lunch. And I'm not going to tell you not to go out with your friends and have drinks. What I am going to tell you, and what I've been telling clients for over a decade is, I want you to own up to the money you're spending. So when you do your budget, and let's say you do get coffee every morning, I do. When I go to work, part of my ritual is hitting that drive-through and getting a cup of coffee. And I could have put coffee in a thermos, made it at home, and saved a few bucks. But for me, it was part of that ritual of starting my day. So when I did my budget though, there was $50 a month for drive-through coffee. So I owned up to it. So again, you work hard, you earn the money, you can spend it on whatever you want, but own up to it. Because I tell you what, coffee and a muffin, eating out lunch every day, and happy hour twice a week after work at $10,000, some people will look at that and go, wow, I didn't realize I was spending so much money. Boy, does that add up quickly. So when it comes to money management, here are some tips that might be able to help you put a few extra pennies in your pocket. Because at the end of the day, it's never about what you make. Remember this, it's never about what you make. It's always about what you end up keeping and how you put what you keep to work for you, not just now, but in the future. So, money management tip number 1 is pay yourself first. Okay, the 10% rule. If you take 10% of everything you earn and just sock it away and you pay yourself first, you should be good to go for the rest of your life. I'm a big fan of the 15% rule. I feel in today's day and age, we can still get away with 15% and live a comfortable life on 85%. But if you're somewhere between 10 and 15, I think you'll be just fine. Now, the ideology around that is this though, is the first 10% comes off the top, it gets put away, whether you're paying down debt, whether you're saving that money, whether you take that and you put it towards a positive step for you, and then with everything else, you pay your bills and you have your spending money, okay? A lot of people, what they'll do first is they'll pay everybody else first. They'll pay their bills, they'll have their disposable income, and then they turn around and go, wow, I don't have anything left to save. But if you make that a forced savings once a month or once every paycheck, you'll never see it. I guarantee you that. 10%, you'll never feel it, you'll never see it. Plan for monthly savings. It's super, super important. One great idea that I can give you is you can manage your monthly expense calendar based on when you have to pay your bills. So example, here's something that I do. My credit card is due on the 20th of every month. And my bigger bills that I can't pay with a credit card, I typically pay by the 5th of the month. So the way I've set it up is that all my big bills come out on the 5th, the mortgage, the car payment, the insurance, things that I can't use a credit card. And then everything else goes on a credit card. There's only 2 times a month where money comes out of my personal bank account. The 5th to pay all those big bills, and then on the 20th to pay off my credit card. So I'm not floating through the month wondering, oh, you know, am I gonna fall short on my car payment? Or, oh, do I have enough for my mortgage? Or, oh, did I put enough in there for my credit card? Nope, I'm stress-free because I've set it up in such a way that it's only coming out twice a month. So I ask, can I pay with a credit card? If the answer is yes, and I can rack up some points, I'm paying on the 20th. If the answer is no, I'm paying on the 5th. And I set it up like that. Now, create a monthly budget. It's so important, and it is the most humbling experience you will have when it comes to your financial plan. You will be amazed at what you spend your money on. And for some people, it's pretty humbling. What you want to look at though is once you've done the exercise, and I would do it over a few months, once you've done the exercise and you start to see patterns, you can then decide for yourself, is this what I really want to be spending my money on? Or can I reroute this $50 coffee money, you know, make coffee at home for $25 and then take $25 and save it or pay down some extra debt? That's a decision you can make once you've got it all laid out in front of you. Now, I would say use credit cards with caution. You know, it's real easy to rack those things up because, you know, when it comes time to pay the bill, they say, oh, you don't have to pay the whole bill. You can just pay a little piece and we'll carry you the next month and the next month and the next month. And you know what? Those interest rates could be north of 19, 20, sometimes even 29%. So if you carried a balance of $10,000 on your credit card for 1 year, you could be paying upwards of $2,000 in interest just for the luxury of carrying that. So you want to be very, very careful when it comes to managing that credit card. The great thing about the credit card is you get 30 days to pay, but you know, the other side of the sword is that you get 30 days to pay, and it's just so easy to lay that plastic down. Remember, you buy it, you still have to pay for it. Being mindful of interest rates. And you know what? I would constantly be trying to negotiate better rates. You can call your credit card provider. You can talk to them. They will lower the interest rate for you. You can have those conversations. I've had clients that have brought their credit card interest rate from 19% down to 7%. Now, they didn't do it in one day in one phone call. It was over a long period of time, but they were able to talk to their credit card provider and say, listen, you gotta help me, you gotta work with me here. You know, I wanna keep using your card, but the interest rate's not working for me, right? Be mindful of interest rates. Be mindful of the small print as well. Some credit cards, they'll just send you, and it now has a fee, whether it's a monthly or an annual fee for the privilege of using the card. Be mindful of what the points will give you. You know, some cards will give you better points than others. Do your research around that. Now, when it comes to debt, you know, people ask me this question, you know, how should I tackle my debt? Well, there's 2 ways of doing it, and personally, I think the first way is the wrong way. What people will do is they've got this big mountain of debt, and they'll just throw everything at the debt as much as they can, as fast as they can. They won't go out to eat, they won't spend time with their friends, they won't do anything fun because they want to pay down this debt. And then what happens is, so let's say it's the mortgage. They pay off their mortgage and they go, we own the house, this is great. You know what the number one thing people do once they pay off their mortgage? Is they renovate. They rack it right back up, and then they go and they fix their kitchen, or they do their bathroom, or they do something in the home, or some things in the home to give it that facelift. And guess what? They go right back to paying down that debt. Well, here's what happens. you end up becoming this hamster on a spinning wheel because you rack it up, you pay it off. You rack it up, you pay it off. You rack it up, you pay it off. But you know what? You're not saving on the other side. So what's going to happen? How many times can you rack it up and pay it off and rack it up and pay it off? And then you turn around and you're 65 years old and you look around and go, oh, I didn't save anything along the way. Problem, right? I believe you're always going to have some level of debt, whether it's a car payment, whether it's a mortgage, a line of credit, something's going to come up. Very, very few people coast through their entire life debt-free for the whole time. There's always going to be something, right? The roof leaks. You need $6,000 to fix it, right? Chances are you're gonna put it on the line of credit, pay that thing off slowly. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? As long as you manage it. But the problem with doing the hamster on the spinning wheel that I was talking about is you rack it up, pay it off, rack it up, pay it off. If you're not saving as you're doing that, you're gonna have a major problem. So my recommendation is this. Number one, pay off the debt in the same speed that it took you to get into debt. So as you're saving, pay the debt down. Do a little bit of both, okay? Manage those numbers. So as you're paying that debt down, your savings is building and building and building and building and building, okay? Number two, I would say think like a bank robber when it comes to paying your debt. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the 30s, they caught this famous bank robber who'd been robbing banks for 30 years. And they did all the psychological testing and they found out the guy was a genius. And they asked him, well, you're such a smart guy. Why are you robbing banks all across the US? And he said, well, that's where the money is. And I found that story very interesting. And now let's apply it to interest rates. So if my mortgage is 2.5% interest rate, and I can earn 5 to 6% investing in the market, where's the best place for that money? Well, I would suggest that it's probably better to earn money on your money, right? Because you can earn 7% instead of saving on 3. But if you had a credit card that had a 19% interest rate and I could earn 7% in the market, I'd be paying down that credit card first, because that 19% interest is going to rack up a lot quicker than the 7% will grow. Does that make sense? So think like a bank robber. Go where the money is, right? When it comes to your home, and I get it. My dad is old school where he says, listen, I have a debt. I want to pay it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to throw everything I have at it. Great. If you have the means to do that and still save, rock on. But to pay off your house and aggressively do that and then just sit on the asset doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Whereas on the other side of the coin, if you just pay over the 25 years at 3%, 2.5%, which is what the interest rate environment is now, and then you're saving on the other side of the ledger at 6, 7, 8%, you're gonna have a nice balance, because when you finally pay that house off, you're gonna have this big pot of money that you can work with, and that will take you to the next phase of your life. So when it comes to paying off debt and your mortgage, think like a bank robber, go where the money is. The last piece is have an emergency fund. You never know when it's gonna hit the fan. You never know when your tire is gonna blow out on the highway. You never know when the roof is gonna leak or the foundation's gonna crack, or a child needs emergency surgery because they smacked their face on a log and busted a tooth. I don't know. I've got 3 kids. They stumble and bumble all the time. I mean, that's what they do. So at the end of the day, have an emergency fund, something that you can dip into, whether it's your tax-free savings account. That mirrors as an excellent emergency fund, whether it's a line of credit that you can, it's a secure line of credit that you can pull from, or just maybe a small little box of savings. Maybe you're not putting it to work for you just, like the rest of your investments, but it's that little bit of emergency savings that, God forbid something happened and you need something, you can just pull from that, and then you can replenish it later. The last thing you want to do is go to a payday advance and pay crazy interest rates to get an advance on your paycheck, okay? So look for ways to snip and cut when it comes to your outgoing. And again, I'm not saying don't spend your money. I'm not saying don't buy the latest this and the latest that, and don't go for lunch and don't have drinks. And I'm not saying don't go through that drive-through. I did it for many, many years. What I'm saying is own up to your budget, make sure you're on top of it and managing it, and make sure you're living within your means. 60% of Canadians spend more than they make. And that is a one-way train ticket to disaster. You want to make sure that you're in that 40% that spends within their means. And you know what? If through these videos, we all go behind the vault and we can shift that to 41% or 42%, huge accomplishment for us here. So that's it for today. I hope these tips have been helpful. You've been behind the vault. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and comment down here, subscribe, and here's our next video.